Good morning. This is Yvonne Cooper, Empire State Development Corporate Secretary. I'd like to welcome everyone this morning's meeting. Before we formally begin, I would ask that everyone please mute your lines unless you are speaking. We'll begin today by taking a roll call of all the directors to ensure we have a quorum present on the line. Please be so kind as to say present when we call your name. Kevin Eunice.
Present.
Kevin Eunice.
Present.
Paul Tronelone.
Present.
Holly Light.
Present.
Edwin Lee.
Present.
Thank you all so much for joining today. Chairman Eunice, you are ready to begin.
All right, Yvonne, thank you. Thank you for the intro, and thanks for the work in putting together the meeting. Good morning, everyone. I would now call to order the meeting of the directors of the Empire State New Market Corporation for Thursday, March 18th, 2021. I'd like to note that I will be the acting chair for today's meeting. Before we get started, I will ask that everyone please mute their phones until you're ready to speak. I'd ask anyone wishing to speak, please be sure to state your name before you begin. I'd also note that due to public health concerns and as authorized by an executive order of the governor, this meeting will be conducted by teleconference. I'd also note that the public was given the opportunity to comment on the agenda items by submitting their written comments by 4:30 p.m. yesterday, and state for the record that no comments were received from the public concerning today's agenda items. The directors have received the relevant written materials in advance of today's meetings and are free to ask questions at any time. Before we begin with the substantive portion of the meeting, I'd ask the directors whether anyone has any potential conflicts of interest, which I can't imagine we would, with respect to any of the items on the agenda, but if so, please make an appropriate disclosure on the record at this time. All right, hearing none. The first item on today's agenda is approval of the minutes from November 12th, 2020, directors meeting. And I'd like to remind everyone, please state your name before speaking. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval.
This is Paul Tronelone. So moved. Paul
second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. The motion carries. I'd now like to call upon Jonathan Hornsby to present the final item on today's agenda, which is the approval of the corporation's operating budget for the fiscal year 21-22. Jonathan.
Thank you, Kevin. This is John Evan Hornsby, and good morning, all. New York State finance law requires that prior to the commencement on April 1st of each new fiscal year, the directors of Empire State New Market Corporation adopt an annual operating budget. Approval is hereby requested for the proposed fiscal year 2021-22 operating budget. Empire State New Market Corporation was incorporated in 2004 for the purpose of applying for an allocation of federal New Markets tax credit from the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund of the U.S. Department of Treasury. ESMC received its first allocation of NMTCs in 2009 in the amount of $30 million. All of this initial allocation was deployed into NMTC projects for Chobani, formerly known as AgroPharma, and the Brooklyn Navy Yard Development Corporation. In 2016, ESMC received the second allocation in the amount of $55 million. ESMC used all of that allocation in connection with the National Comedy Center, SUNY Broome Culinary Arts Center, Cornell Medical Center, Boys and Girls Club of Schenectady, 37 Chandler Street, Thin Man Brewery, Courier Plastics, the Chautauqua Center, and all the NMTC transactions. In November 2020, ESMC submitted an NMTC allocation application requesting a new $77 million allocation. ESMC is currently awaiting notification from the CDFI fund regarding that application. ESMC continues to service the closed transactions and hopes to receive a new NMTC allocation so that it can close further transactions. The ESMC Board of Directors is thus presented with the proposed operating budget for fiscal year 2021-22. It is to be noted that ESMC revenues come from fees charged on transactions. In fiscal year 2019-20, ESMC revenue was approximately $1.3 million. In fiscal years 2020-21 and 2021-22, ESMC revenue is projected to be approximately $375,000 per year, primarily from fees from closed transactions. If ESMC receives a new NMTC allocation, then fiscal year 2021-22 revenue would be significantly higher. In addition to the expenses funded by fees ESMC receives from transactions, ESMC incurs certain transaction-specific consulting expenses that are paid by borrowers directly from transaction closing proceeds. Such expenses and their reimbursements associated therewith have been excluded from its budget. ESMC's proposed fiscal year 2021-22 operating budget of $420,750 includes $300 of consulting expenses for ESMC's consultant, Rise Community Capital, for assistance with the preparation of the 2021 NMTC allocation application and assistance with allocation deployment should ESMC receive a new NMTC allocation, and $100,000 for legal and accounting services associated with closed NMTC transactions. The remaining $20,750 is projected for insurance and other non-personal services. The directors are hereby requested to approve the proposed ESMC budget for fiscal year 2021-22. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Any questions or comments from the directors? John Evan, I got two questions. One, I don't think it matters, but I think from point of clarification, you noted that the consultant budget for this year was $300. I think we mean $300,000.
Yes.
And
correct,
then,
yes.
if assuming success on the current pending application, as you noted, would result in additional revenues and expenses, would we be reconsidering this operating budget at that time, or how would that go forward?
No, so we've actually factored in to the budget, optimistically speaking, that would be successful with an application. So we've kind of kept it consistent with last year's budget when we were still closing transactions.
Okay.
So it's actually factored into the budget currently.
Great. All right. Any other questions, comments? And noted earlier, we do not have public comments. I will now entertain a motion for approval.
Holly, so moved.
Edwin, second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. The motion carries. Thank you again, Yvonne. Thanks team, and thanks for participating in today's meeting. There being no further business, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Holly?
Paul Tron, second.
All right. Adjourned. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks.